thy whistle hath been blown. So I imagine there's probably a lot of conflicting reviews about the recent UAP Whistleblower hearing. If you're a seasoned observer of this subject, you're a little familiar with the content, you might have been a tad bit disappointed as the hearings didn't reveal a ton of new, earth-shattering information or anything like that. We were privy to the testimonials of three key figures, Mr. David Grusch, Ryan Graves, and the Commander David Fravor, all of whom have previously stepped into the public spotlight to tell their respective stories. However, if these names are completely new to you, you've never heard of any of those three gentlemen, you might have found your perception of reality a little bit shaken, maybe your jaw dropped and hit the floor, you might find yourself questioning the nature of your very existence. And just in case you fall into that category, and you're unacquainted with our illustrious witnesses, let's breeze through the narratives as they were shared during the hearings.
As you know, my name is David Fravor. I'm a retired commander in the United States Navy. In 2004, I was a commanding officer of Strike Fighter Squadron 41, the world-famous Black Aces. On this day, we were scheduled for a 2v2 air-to-air training with the USS Princeton as our control. When we launched off Nimitz, my wingman was joining up. We were told that the training was going to be suspended and we were going to proceed with real-world tasking. As we proceeded to the west, the air controller was counting down the range to an object that we were going to, and we were unaware of what we were going to see when we arrived. The controller had told us that these objects had been observed for over 2 weeks, coming down from over 80,000 feet, rapidly descending to 20,000 feet, hanging out for hours, and then going straight back up. For those who don't realize, above 80,000 feet is space.
Now listen. All I'm saying is that sounds a lot like typical balloon behavior to me. Balloons do that kind of thing all the time.
All four of us, because we were an F-18F, so we had pilots and Wizzo in the back seat, looked down a small, saw a white tic-tac object with a longitudinal axis pointing north-south and moving very abruptly over the water like a ping pong ball. There were no rotors, no rotor wash, or any sign of visible control surfaces like wings.
You believe that you witnessed an additional object under the water in relation to your encounter?
I will say we did not see an object. There was something there to cause the whitewater, and when we turned around, it was gone, so there was something there that obviously moved. As we started clockwise towards the object, my Wizzo and I decided to go down and take a closer look at the other aircraft staying in high cover to observe both us and the tic-tac. As we pulled nose onto the object, within about a half mile of it, it rapidly accelerated in front of us and disappeared. So as we started to turn back towards the east, the controller came up and said, "Sir, you're not going to believe this, but that thing is at your cap point roughly 60 miles away in less than a minute." You can calculate the speed.
Just to give some context, the speed of sound is 767 miles per hour, and this object was traveling 3,600 miles per hour. And for those of you that don't know, in the context of a training exercise, specific details of a scenario, such as the location of something like a cap point, right, which is like the undisclosed rendezvous point of your training exercise, is not actually revealed to the pilots until necessary. This is done to simulate the uncertainties and real-time decision-making often required in actual combat situations. So when this occurred, the location of the cap point had not yet been disclosed to Commander Fravor or any of the other pilots. However, the tic-tac was somehow able to discern this information and travel there, as I said before, nearly 5 times faster than the speed of sound. Definitely not aliens. Definitely not aliens.
My name is Ryan Fobbs Graves, and I'm a former F-18 pilot with a decade of service in the U.S. Navy, including 2 deployments in Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Inherent Resolve. I have experienced advanced UAP firsthand, and I'm here to voice the concerns of more than 30 commercial aircrew and military veterans who have confided their similar encounters with me. We were primarily seeing dark gray or black cubes inside of a clear sphere.
I'm sorry, dark gray or black cubes?
Yes, inside of a clear sphere, where the apex or tips of the cube were touching inside of that sphere. And that was primarily what was being reported when we were able to gain a visual tally of these objects. And that occurred over almost 8 years. And as far as I know, it still occurred.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go ahead and say that's definitely 100% a balloon. There just ain't no question about it.
In the 2003 timeframe, a large group of Boeing contractors were operating near one of the launch facilities at Vandenberg Air Force Base when they observed a very large 100-yard sided red square approach the base from the ocean and hover at low altitude over one of the launch facilities. This object remained for about 45 seconds or so before darting off over the mountains. There was a similar event within 24 hours later in the evening. This was a morning event, I believe 8:45 in the morning. Later in the evening, post-sunset, there were reports of other sightings on base, including some aggressive behaviors. These objects were approaching some of the security guards at rapid speeds before darting off. And this is information that was received through one of the witnesses that have approached me at Americans for Safe Aerospace.
What percentage of UAP sightings, in your belief, go unreported by our pilots?
This is an approximation based off of my personal experience speaking with a number of pilots, but I would estimate we're somewhere near 5% reporting perhaps.
So like 95% basically don't report seeing UAPs.
This one was actually new to me. I hadn't heard of this one before. A floating football field-sized square, a red one. It's just a very interesting picture being put into my head. I'd really love to see something like that, to be honest. Like, I don't even think I'd be like super freaked out or anything. I think I'd just be like, whoa, you know? Last but certainly not least, we have Mr. David Grusch. We discussed him in the last video I put out. Spoiler alert, in the hearings, he's gonna sound like a bit of a broken record, but this is by design. The most important thing to consider here when you're listening to his testimony is that he is under oath. So just keep that in mind, and we'll circle back and discuss that afterwards.
My name is David Charles Grusch. I was an intelligence officer for 14 years. I was my agency's co-lead in unidentified anomalous phenomena and transmedium object analysis, as well as reporting to the UAP task force, UAPTF.
Can you give me the names and titles of the people with direct firsthand knowledge and access to some of this crash retrieval, some of these crash retrieval programs, maybe which facilities, military bases that the recovered material would be in?
I can't discuss that publicly, but I did provide that information both to the Intel committees and the Inspector General.
And we could get that in the SCIF if we were allowed to get in a SCIF with you. Would that be probably what you would think?
Sure, if you had the appropriate accesses, yeah.
What special access programs cover this information, and how is it possible that they have evaded oversight for so long?
I do know the names. Once again, I can't discuss that publicly and how they've evaded oversight. In a closed setting, I can tell you the specific tradecraft used.
All right. When do you think those programs began, and who authorized them?
I do know a lot of that information, but that's something I can't discuss publicly.
All right. Has there been an active U.S. government disinformation campaign to deny the existence of unidentified aerial phenomena? And if so, why?
I can't go beyond what I've already espoused publicly about that.
I can't stress enough how important it is that David Grusch is testifying under oath in all the footage that we just watched. So consider this. If he's unable to follow through on providing any of this information that he's continuously promising, it's not going to take them very long to figure out that he's not being truthful. And as I said before, Representative Burchett is asking these questions by design. He is 100% fully aware that Mr. Grusch can't answer these questions publicly.
You know, a lot of the things I already knew the answers to, but coming from me is one thing, but coming from a combat veteran who holds up his hand and swears to God that these are the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, that's pretty strong.
Congress, in general, really had some catching up to do.
Okay, Mr. Fravor, the TikTok incident that you were engaged occurred in 2004.
It's tic-tac, like the candy, not TikTok like the Chinese communist app.
Now, is it true that you saw, in your words, a 40-foot flying tic-tac-shaped object?
That's correct. Or for some people that can't know what a Tic Tac is, it's a giant flying propane tank.
I'm just sitting here trying to think about exactly what a 40-foot flying TikTok UFO might look like. And all I'm saying is I'm probably going to have a couple nightmares.
Mr. Burchett, if you'll yield, so just to put a fine point on that, there's nothing that you're aware of that's above special access program classification.
It's a misnomer that there's anything actually above top secret. Executive Order 13526 delineates the classification levels.
Right. But I draw a point on that because we can have access to those programs. And so the notion that we're not being given that access sort of defies our typical muscle memory here in Congress. Thank you, Mr. Burchett. I'll yield back to you.
There clearly is a threat to the national security of the United States of America. As members of Congress, we have a responsibility to maintain oversight and be aware of these activities so that, if appropriate, we take action.
What level of security clearance is required to fully access these programs?
Well, anybody who has...
And I say that because myself, Representative Gates and Representative Luna were basically turned away at one point at Eglin. Along those lines, Title 10, you may not know this or not, but Title 10 and Title 50 authorization, they seem to say they're inefficient. So who gets to decide this, in your opinion, in the past?
It's a group of career senior executive officials.
Okay, are they government officials?
Both in and out.
Do what?
Both in and out of government, and that's about as far as
I got you.
The fact that members of Congress keep getting denied access to stuff seems like it's really pissing them off. And from my perspective, this just seems like a really good thing. So if we assume there are indeed people suppressing this or any other information, they clearly aren't elected officials. When we vote for and elect officials into government positions, we're appointing people to represent us within our government, right? The idea here is pretty simple. There are individuals out there that are denying our elected officials access to information that they should have access to. Personally, I think that's kind of a huge problem. Whoever these people are, we certainly didn't vote for them. We didn't elect them, and we have no clue who they are. And apparently, neither does Congress. And if there are people out there stonewalling our elected officials from information that they should have access to, something has gone horribly wrong. And honestly, aliens or not, I'm going to be more than a little bit alarmed if someone isn't looking into that. Well, let me know what you thought. I'm honestly very interested in how everyone felt about this. Although I was secretly hoping that they were going to bring out a live alien for questioning, or maybe like bust out a secret last-minute witness out of nowhere that was just gonna rock everybody, or maybe even just like throw out a couple of pictures, like fall out of a folder that got a bunch of alien crafts in them or something that we could sneak a peek at. I mean, none of that happened, but all things considered, I feel like it's certainly a step in the right direction, a direction towards figuring out what's actually going on here. Hey, wait. Before you go, I completely forgot the YouTube thing. Smack all the buttons, do all the stuff down there. Y'all know the drill. I don't need to tell you what to do. Just see you next time.